"I never wanted to be a movie star," Goldie Hawn once admitted, her voice almost trembling. Strange, isn't it? A woman who never chased Hollywood's crown ended up wearing it brighter than anyone. For decades, her laugh was America's medicine, light, contagious, unstoppable. But behind that laugh was a silence, so sharp it cut deeper than tears. From Cactus Flower to Private Benjamin, Goldie shattered the dumb blonde curse and rewrote what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood. She became the icon who dared to be fragile yet fearless. The girl who twirled in ballet slippers grew into the woman who defied studios, critics, even time itself. Her smile lit up red carpets, her wit disarmed powerful men, her charm built a legacy that seemed unbreakable. Yet nothing in Hollywood is ever unbreakable. Not beauty, not laughter, not even memory. At 79, Goldie stands in the twilight of her legend, health fading, secrets resurfacing, and a memory that sometimes betrays her. The woman who once made the world laugh now faces a tragedy more haunting than any role she ever played. This isn't just Goldie Hawn's story. It's the story of how an icon becomes human again. And maybe, just maybe, that humanity is her greatest tragedy of all. Goldie Jean Hawn was born on November 21st, 1945, in Washington, D.C., into a household where both joy and grief quietly mingled. Her father, Edward Rutledge Hawn, carried the rhythm of life as a band musician and conductor, a man whose lineage traced back to Edward Rutledge, the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. Her mother, Laura Steinhoff, a daughter of Hungarian Jewish immigrants, poured her soul into running a dance school, teaching grace and discipline to children who would never know the weight of her private sacrifices. But in the Hawn family, there was a silence that never left. Goldie and her sister Patty were raised unaware of an older brother, Edward Jr., who had died before Patty's birth. That absence of brother loss, a story unspoken, was like a hidden scar stitched into Goldie's childhood. She would later describe her early years as a time of movement, of constant rhythm, yet always shadowed by something missing, a note in the music that was never played. At only 3, she stepped into her mother's ballet and tap studio, a child moving instinctively toward the stage. By 10, she was already chosen to perform in The Nutcracker with the Ballets Russes de Monte Carlo, her small frame dwarfed by the lights, but her spirit somehow belonging there. She was not destined for the background. She demanded the gaze of the room without even trying. Yet Goldie's independence was born early. At 19, she dropped out of drama studies at American University and opened her own ballet school. Imagine it, a teenage girl choosing to build her own stage rather than wait for someone else's permission. This was the first hint of the Goldie the world would come to know, fearless, stubborn, unwilling to settle for the script written for her. Still dance was not enough. The pirouettes, the piano, the measured movements of a studio, they were too small for a girl whose dreams kept breaking past the walls. She longed for something bigger, a larger stage, a wider canvas, a world where the applause didn't end when the music stopped. That longing was about to carry her far away from Washington into the desert, into California, and straight into the heart of Hollywood. In 1966, at just 21, Goldie packed her dreams into a suitcase and boarded a flight from the East Coast to California. She had only $50 left after buying her tiny poodle and paying for the ticket, yet she carried with her something far rarer than money: fearless conviction. On that flight, she scribbled into her diary, "If anyone doubts the existence of God, they only need to sit in my seat right now." The sky stretched endlessly, and so did the possibilities. But destiny, like Hollywood itself, is never a straight path. Her car, a 1959 Chevrolet convertible she had just purchased, broke down in the middle of the desert. Alone, stranded, with only her dog by her side, she could have turned back. Instead, she hitched a ride from a young Green Beret just back from Vietnam. It was reckless, dangerous, yet in Goldie's world, chaos always had a way of turning into a story. That fleeting encounter one Sunday afternoon, one soldier, one broken car, was her first lesson in what would become her hallmark, transforming mishaps into memories. Her persistence paid off. In 1967, she landed her first role in the sitcom Good Morning World. Though she was quickly typecast as the dumb blonde, audiences were enchanted. She giggled mid-line, sparkled through awkward pauses, and embodied a kind of carefree joy that the late 60s craved. But her real breakthrough was yet to come. When Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In exploded onto television in 1968, Goldie was no longer just a supporting actress. She became a pop culture goddess, painted in psychedelic colors, dancing in bikinis, and laughing with abandon. She embodied the spirit of the era. The world thought it had found another pretty face. Instead, it had discovered a force of nature. Then came her film debut in the one and only genuine original family band, 1968, but it was Cactus Flower, 1969, that changed everything. Playing a young fiancée entangled in a web of love and lies, Goldie stunned critics with her mix of innocence and emotional rawness. Against all odds, she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her very first major role. Yet while Hollywood saw a blonde ingenue, Goldie was already plotting something else. She didn't want to be trapped in roles that mocked her intelligence. She wanted control. She wanted to produce. She wanted to write her own story in an industry where women were rarely allowed that freedom. Her journey from sitcom sidekick to Oscar winner in just a few years was nothing short of meteoric. But meteors, as dazzling as they are, eventually burn as they fall through the atmosphere. And Goldie's rise was about to test whether she could survive the heat of Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. By the mid-1970s, Goldie Hawn was no longer just a breakout star. She was Hollywood's golden girl, a box office guarantee, and a woman daring enough to carve her own empire in an industry built by men. While most actresses of her time were confined to roles as love interests or comic relief, Goldie was already producing her own projects, rewriting the rules for what a woman could be on screen. Her path was paved with daring choices. In Steven Spielberg's The Sugarland Express, 1974, she shed the dumb blonde image for a desperate mother on the run. In Warren Beatty's Shampoo, 1975, she blended innocence with sharp wit, holding her own against Hollywood's most powerful men. Every performance seemed to whisper the same message: "Don't tell me I can't. Just watch me." Then came Private Benjamin, 1980, the film that defined her legacy. Studios scoffed at the idea of a female-led military comedy. "No one will buy a ticket to see this," they said. But Goldie believed. She fought for the project, produced it herself, and when the original director quit, she stepped in to save the production. The gamble paid off. With nearly $70 million in box office returns, Private Benjamin became one of the year's biggest hits and earned Goldie both Golden Globe and Oscar nominations. She wasn't just acting anymore, she was shaping cinema. The hits followed in steady rhythm: Best Friends, 1982, Swing Shift, 1984, Overboard, 1987, where her on-screen romance with Kurt Russell turned into a real-life love story, and Bird on a Wire, 1990, with Mel Gibson. Each film was a showcase of her range: comedy, romance, drama, action. She could do it all. Then in 1996 came her commercial peak, The First Wives Club. With Diane Keaton and Bette Midler at her side, Goldie turned a story of heartbreak and betrayal into one of the most iconic comedies of its era. Grossing $181 million worldwide, it was the crown jewel of her career. Few know that before filming, the three actresses signed a secret pact: no one would try to steal the spotlight from the others. That solidarity made the film timeless and solidified Goldie's place among Hollywood's greats. By the late 1990s, films featuring Goldie Hawn had grossed over $2 billion at the domestic box office. Adjusted for inflation, she wasn't a fleeting starlet. she was a phenomenon, a woman who had taken the role of blonde joke and turned it into a decades-long career of layered, unforgettable characters. But fame, no matter how dazzling, always comes with shadows. Behind the applause and flashing cameras, Goldie was about to face trials that even her radiant smile couldn't hide. For every standing ovation, there was a silence waiting at home. Goldie's career, dazzling as it was, came at a cost few could imagine. The pressures of fame weighed on her, and in her personal life, heartbreak seemed to shadow every triumph. Her first marriage to dancer Gus Triconis began like a bohemian love story. They shared a birthday, a passion for music and movement, and a hunger for art. But when Goldie's career skyrocketed after her Oscar win for Cactus Flower, the gap between them widened. While she became Hollywood's newest sensation, Gus struggled to find footing behind the camera. In April 1973, the marriage collapsed. Goldie later admitted she felt drained, yearning for escape. "I wanted to go to India and meditate," she confessed. By 1976, she remarried, this time to musician Bill Hudson. On the surface, it seemed idyllic. A family with 2 children, Oliver and Kate, posed for magazines like a picture of free-spirited happiness. But behind closed doors, bitterness grew. Bill accused Goldie of wanting an open marriage, while she felt trapped by his resentment of her success. Their divorce in 1982 ignited a feud that would smolder for decades. When their son Oliver posted a happy abandonment day message on Father's Day in 2015, Bill fired back with venom, publicly disowning his children. What had begun as romance ended as a wound that never healed. And yet, in the ruins of that marriage, Goldie found Kurt Russell. Their love story, beginning on the set of Swing Shift in 1983, became one of Hollywood's rare miracles. They built a blended family, raised 4 children, and vowed never to marry, not out of fear, but out of freedom. "Every morning I choose him, and he chooses me," Goldie once said. Their union became the antithesis of Hollywood's fleeting affairs, enduring defiant, almost mythical. Still, not all of Goldie's battles were personal. In an industry dominated by powerful men, she endured subtle sabotage, arrogance, and cruelty. Kirk Douglas dismissed her as decoration even after her Oscar. Warren Beatty, after she rejected his advances, quietly poisoned opportunities with rumors. Chevy Chase undermined her on set. Bill Murray mocked her craft, and Sean Penn publicly belittled her at a charity gala. Each time, Goldie's response was silence, not because she lacked courage, but because she refused to let them define her. "I will not fight to be respected by people who have already decided I'm a joke," she once declared after an audition where Dustin Hoffman humiliated her. But time, harsher than any rival, proved the cruelest critic. By 2025, Goldie's radiant presence had dimmed under the weight of fading health and fractured memory. At the Academy Awards, standing hand in hand with Kurt Russell, she charmed the audience as always until she whispered to Andrew Garfield, "Sweetheart, could you read that? I can't read it. I'm completely blind." Cataracts. The room laughed gently, but unease lingered. Was this just age catching up or something deeper? For the millions who once knew her as the eternal goddess of laughter, it was a sobering reminder: even legends are fragile, even icons can fall. As the new millennium arrived, Goldie Hawn quietly stepped away from the spotlight. After her golden run from the 1970s through the 1990s, she chose silence over saturation. For nearly 15 years, she appeared in only 2 films, Town and Country, 2001, and The Banger Sisters, 2002, before retreating into what seemed like semi-retirement. To the public, it looked like she had simply vanished, another star fading into Hollywood's crowded sky. But Goldie had not disappeared. She had shifted her stage. Her energy turned toward family philanthropy and building her Mind Up Foundation, dedicated to children's mental health and mindfulness. While the cameras moved on to younger faces, Goldie was teaching kids to breathe, to focus, to fight the same anxieties she herself had carried when the world first thrust its gaze upon her. Her cinematic return came in Snatched, 2017, a mother-daughter comedy with Amy Schumer and later as Mrs. Claus, and Netflix's The Christmas Chronicles, 2018-2020, alongside Kurt Russell. These roles reminded audiences of her charm, though they carried a bittersweet note. The Goldie who once dominated theaters now appeared only as a fleeting holiday presence. Yet in her private world, she remained radiant. With Kurt, she built a blended family where laughter echoed louder than fame. Their children, Oliver, Kate Boston, and Wyatt, each carried a piece of their legacy into the next generation. Kate, now a star in her own right, often credits her mother for teaching resilience. Wyatt, the youngest, stepped into the Marvel universe, proving the Hawn-Russell magic still had a future. Still, age has its own script, one even the strongest cannot rewrite. At 79, Goldie's health has become a public concern. That vulnerable Oscars moment in 2025, her candid admission about blindness from cataracts, sparked whispers of decline. Was it simply aging or something deeper? Social media filled with divided voices, admiration for her courage, sadness at her frailty, and nostalgia for the woman who once seemed untouchable. But perhaps this is where Goldie's greatest lesson lies. She never pretended to be invincible. She allowed herself to be human, flawed, breakable. She showed that even in fragility, there is strength. For a woman who built her career on laughter, revealing her vulnerability in front of millions, may have been her bravest performance of all. Goldie Hawn's legacy is not written only in box office numbers or golden statues, but in the quiet revolutions she sparked. She redefined what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood at a time when the system insisted on confining her to a single box. The dumb blonde label was supposed to be a trap. Goldie turned it into a weapon, using humor and vulnerability to carve depth into roles that might otherwise have been forgettable. Her influence stretches across generations. Actresses like Julia Roberts, Reese Witherspoon, and even her own daughter Kate Hudson have admitted that Goldie's mix of comedy, independence, and resilience paved the way for them. She proved women could lead films, produce them, and bend genres to their will. Without her, the landscape of female-driven comedy might have been far narrower. But beyond Hollywood, Goldie became a cultural symbol. She chose not to marry Kurt Russell, defying social convention and proving that love could last without legal chains. She raised a family where stepchildren and biological children were treated with equal devotion, showing the world that family is built not by blood alone, but by choice, laughter, and loyalty. Her philanthropic work, especially through her Mind Up Foundation, brought mindfulness and emotional learning into classrooms. For children struggling with anxiety and self-doubt, Goldie became more than an actress. She became a quiet guide, offering the tools she wished she had when the spotlight first overwhelmed her. Even her conflicts shaped the culture of Hollywood. By refusing to publicly retaliate against powerful men who belittled or manipulated her, she created a model of dignity in an era before #MeToo. She showed that silence too can be an act of defiance, an act of self-preservation when the battlefield is poison, and yet her story resonates most because of its humanity. Goldie Hawn was never an untouchable goddess. She was radiant, yes, but also fragile. She was bold, but sometimes wounded. She laughed so the world could forget its pain, even as she carried her own. That duality, the light and the shadow, made her not just a star, but a legend. Today, whenever her old films flicker across late-night screens, audiences don't just see an actress. They see a time when cinema itself felt more innocent, more daring, more alive. Watching Goldie is like opening a window into the past, a reminder of both the joy she gave us and the storm she endured to do it. Looking back at Goldie Hawn's journey, it's hard not to feel torn between admiration and melancholy. On one side, she represents the very best of Hollywood's golden age, a woman who laughed her way past prejudice, who turned vulnerability into power, and who built a career that spanned generations. On the other, her story is heavy with the kind of heartbreak that fame often hides: broken marriages, estranged family ties, humiliations at the hands of powerful men, and now the visible fragility of old age. Her triumphs cannot be overstated. She proved that comedy could be sophisticated, that women could produce their own films, and that one radiant smile could make an entire world pause. She shattered the stereotype of the helpless blonde, reminding us that intelligence and humor are weapons just as sharp as drama, but the tragedies are just as undeniable. Her children's public feud with their father, the cruel whispers of colleagues, the slow erosion of health, all paint a picture of a woman who has carried more weight than her laughter ever revealed. To watch her falter at the Oscars in 2025, admitting blindness with raw honesty, was both painful and strangely inspiring. It was the moment when Goldie showed us she wasn't just an icon, but a human being, flawed, vulnerable, but still luminous. Perhaps that is why her story lingers so deeply. Goldie Hawn is both a mirror and a myth, the mirror of every woman who's been underestimated, and the myth of a Hollywood goddess who refused to shatter even as time tried to break her. So here is the question: what defines a legacy, more glory, or the way we endure our scars? In Goldie's case, it may be both. Her laughter built the memory. Her pain built the truth. Together, they made her unforgettable. Goldie Hawn's story is not just a chapter in Hollywood's history, it is a reminder of how fragile even the brightest stars can be. From the little girl spinning in her mother's dance studio to the woman whose name once commanded the box office, she lived every shade of triumph and sorrow. Her laughter filled living rooms, her tears broke stereotypes, and her resilience gave a generation of women the courage to dream louder. And yet, the image that lingers most today is not the radiant blonde in sequins, nor the Oscar-winning actress holding a golden statue. It is the 79-year-old woman on the Academy Awards stage, her hand trembling as she leaned on Andrew Garfield, whispering that she could no longer read the words before her. Vulnerable, human, mortal. In that moment, she gave us a truth no script could ever capture. Even icons fade, but they fade with grace. When we watch Cactus Flower, Private Benjamin, or The First Wives Club, we are not just watching movies. We are remembering a time when Goldie's smile felt like sunlight, when her voice carried defiance, and when Hollywood itself seemed larger than life. That nostalgia binds us, making her story ours to carry forward. And so as the curtain falls, one thought remains: legends are not defined by how long they shine, but by the echoes they leave behind. Goldie Hawn will always be more than an actress. She is a reminder that joy and tragedy can live side by side, and that the most beautiful stories are often the ones laced with heartbreak. Some stories were never meant to be known, but now you know.